The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
Right, Kev, I don't quite understand what's going wrong in your life with this iPhone thing then. I know you've de-Mac'd your house. You've got something in your head about it, but that's fine. You've de-Mac'd your house, but you've also caused yourself a bit of a problem.
Don't even talk to me.
Well, I'm just thinking that somebody might be able to help, because obviously I know you're very clever with computers, very clever with lots of stuff.
So,
but you're a bit back of the class when it comes to Macs.
Well, it's not a Mac thing. It's an Apple thing.
Oh, is it?
So,
okay.
So Rosa was the last part of the jigsaw. She was still using an Apple iPhone. It got busted to bits, and so she's now on an Android phone, which is fine.
I bet you broke it. I bet you did that. I bet you
stood on it.
Oh, Rosa, your phone's fallen off the cliff.
So she's happy with her new phone. But one of the only subscription that I had to Apple was to back up her pictures every month. 79 pence.
The 79 pence one. I've got that.
Yeah. And so I now need to cancel that, of course, right. Even though it's only 79 pence. So I go to Apple to try and sign in on the Apple website. No, can't do that. Yeah. You need to do it on your device or on a Mac. Of course, don't have a device, don't have a Mac. So the only other way you can do it is install that horrible application, iTunes, on your Windows PC.
In your opinion, obviously.
It doesn't even conform to the Windows UI standard. Anyway, I've done that. It says, right, you need to log into your account on iTunes, and then you can go to your subscriptions, cancel it.
Easy as.
I click on my login. I put my username and password in. Yep. Yes, you're in. Yeah. We now need to send you a 6-digit code. Oh. Fine. But it's sending my 6-digit code to the phones that we no longer have.
Oh.
And I'm just stuck staring at this frigging screen. And there's an option. It says, didn't receive the verification code, ? So I click that. And then it says, we'll send it to the registered telephone number, which doesn't exist anymore. We don't have it. So it's it can send a text message to a phone I don't have. It can send digits to an iPad I no longer have. And forever, they're just going to take my 79 pence off me. This is why they are it should be illegal.
No, you can't call
terrible.
I might have to bleep that little bit out. That's not a swear word.
I'm happy to get sued by them.
Well, I'm not.
Awful.
Oh, Kev, what we need to do is you need to relax you a bit and say,
it is what it is. It is what it is.
A FujiCast.
Does that make you feel better?
No,
Kev, you can't say that. Right. If anybody, by the way, can solve Kev's problem there, because I do see it, Kev, I understand it, I get it, then perhaps you could contact us. Email in.
Why is there not just a website,
I know.
an Apple website you can log in and see your subscriptions? Do you know why? Why? Because of this. This is how they get all the money off people who can't do it.
Kev, you're a little bit anti-Mac and anti-Apple, I know, but...
I'm not. I'm all for... This is anti-consumer rights. This is borderline... I'll put the word borderline in to protect us. They're making it difficult on purpose.
What do you think, Gemma? Oh, I know. I quite agree with you. Your husband does.
It's like IKEA, where they make you walk in a certain direction around IKEA.
Don't you start on IKEA. I love IKEA, as you're supposed to.
Yeah, but I want to walk. I want to just go straight to the stuff I want. I don't want to walk around all the bedding.
No, Kev,
I don't want to buy
there are shortcuts.
I'll go and get my sausages.
Kev, there are shortcuts. Have you never seen them?
No.
There are.
Follow the arrows.
No, you don't have to, Kev. You can go off the beaten track.
Well, I don't go to IKEA for that reason.
Oh, dear. Well, I tell you what, it's going to be one of those today, isn't it? I can feel it. Right, on the show today, apart from Kev's dislike of quite large blue chips, we're going to be taking your questions on a large company that he likes a lot. We all like a lot. Fujifilm. And your cameras and your photography, things that you've been up to. We've got a few bumps to the front to do in a moment's time. Book of the week, Kev, this week. What did you choose?
Book of the week this week is Unfinished Stories by Lucy Hamidzadeh.
Unfinished Stories.
Almost definitely pronounced the name wrong.
We used to have a buzzer, didn't we? Is Kev got that right or wrong? But Kev always who thinks Kev always gets it right? I think so.
Yes, and especially about Apple.
Right. And a guest this week. Who do we have as your? Because you've been working hard on the interviews.
Peter Dench.
Yeah.
Funniest serious man I've ever met.
Well, I got a message from Kev afterwards that said he's very funny, and that's the problem with text, because you think, I always thought he was quite a nice guy, and I thought what you meant was he's a bit of an odd guy, but that's not what you meant at all. You meant that he was sincerely funny.
Oh no, I really like Peter. Yeah. I mean, I don't know him particularly well. I've met him a few times, but we used to write for the same magazine and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. You'll figure it out in the interview. But he is, beyond an amazing photojournalist. He's a jolly nice chap.
He was always very witty in his writing, wasn't he? Very, very, very witty. But also sometimes, he would pick quite a dour subject and still manage to find some witticisms through it.
Yeah. Well, as you'll hear in the interview, he got one of the press photo of the year, placed in the press photo of the year from a picture from a car accident.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that about Peter. Oh, well, that's in the interview. Let's not do too many spoilers then. Mm-hmm. Right, that's to come. Now, bumped to the front. I think we need to explain something before we do these, by the way, Kev.
Yeah. So bumps to the fronts are the only benefit right now that you get as a patron. If you support us on Patreon, thank you very much. You're entitled to be bumped to the front.
You sell it so well, Kev.
I know. I'm the perfect salesman.
Oh, dear.
What that means is that your questions that will come to us through Patreon will get answered in a timely manner. However, it is worth remembering that we often record the show in a couple of weeks in advance. So just do give us a few weeks to kind of get to everything.
Before you digitally spear us is what Kev's suggesting.
Yeah. So on that point, we've actually got a handful to do. Yeah. So shall we crack on with the show, as Miranda might say?
Yeah.
So this one's from Adam Crook. Oh, there we go. He might work for
Kev, I haven't got time. I've got a lot on this weekend. I've got a 24-hour wedding, and I'm going to be sitting here.
24 hours?
I'm going to be sitting here editing out bits of you. So stop with the legal stuff.
I'm happy as well. Yes, I'm trying to think of a way of analysing this.
Move into a question, Kev, is what I'm suggesting.
Zero once said he would stand on Bob Dylan's coffee table in his cowboy boots and say that Thames Van Zandt is the best singer-songwriter in the world. And I will stand on a plinth in Trafalgar Square and say that this practice is that you can't cancel it easily.
Well, we might yet find a way of you doing it, Kev. We will. The question, Adam.
This is quite a long one. Okay, so we'll do it. A big hello to you both. I thought that it was about time to reach out and say hi. No, that was a supporter of yours on Patreon. Thank you very much, Adam. Blah blah blah. I hope you had a wonderful wedding, Kevin. Blah 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 blah. I really enjoy the format and structure of the show. All too many things on YouTube, etc. Really overly focus on the gear, but I have a good laugh with your air on banter, etc. etc. Blah blah blah. Right, a question not for the show. Oh, okay. This isn't going very well, is it? Okay, so was curious what you retain as benefits for Patreon supporters. That is a very good question.
All right, Patreon, we do the bump to the front. Patreon in terms of FujiCast, because I have my Patreon, don't I, on Photography Daily, and I treat that differently. But in terms of FujiCast, it's there to support the show because you quite like Kev's occasional outbursts about large companies that make phones and watches. But it's not really there for lots and lots of benefits, is it? It's not the way that we set our one up.
Well, not right now. So the plan is, what you will get is discounts where as and when we can get our world spinning again properly, and we've got some plans. Yes. Then you will get substantial discounts on things that we have planned. Yes. But right now, you don't really get anything apart from the opportunity to get bumped to the front.
I tell you what, Kev, if we had a private rant every single, you can write in about this because it wouldn't take that long to do, and I could upload it. Do you want a 10-minute rant every week?
Yeah, that'd be great.
There used to be a guy on a radio station where I worked. It was on Chiltern Radio. What was his name? Bill Young, and he had a Monday moan line, something like that. It was extraordinarily successful. It was the biggest feature of the week, and it gave everybody a chance to get everything off their chest on a Monday on the phone. It was usually Ethel from Dunstable.
I know Ethel. I know her very well.
Yes, she moaned a lot. So there we go. Would that be a benefit? Probably not.
Yeah. But so we did. I have, because I basically do the Patreon stuff.
Yes.
And I have kind of looked into the idea of merch, as they say, which I hate that word, merch. Posters or stickers or T-shirts or something. Yeah. And it's just all a bit tacky, isn't it? So we will reward in the best way we possibly can, which is by giving you nothing.
I think T-shirts and merch, by the way, can be a good thing. But I learned quite a lot a couple of weeks ago when I did a commercial shoot for Monsoon from somebody who was, I think she was a buyer, certainly within that sort of department. We had quite a long conversation about why they choose the clothes that they choose and the money that you spend being slightly, that reassuringly expensive thing. And that's because they don't go to select clothing made by people that are a certain age in sweatshops. It's not the way that they work. And so therefore, choosing merch that doesn't go down that line would be, I think, my eyes are far more open to it than they were even 2 weeks ago, Kev. If we were going to do that sort of thing, that it would have to be, it would have to fit sustainability and all those sort of things.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. That's easy enough to do. But it's, I think I can count on one hand the amount of people that would buy a T-shirt that said FujiCast on it.
Well, they might buy one with Mullins. Mullins is mad on the front with your eyes and your eyebrows.
Yeah, maybe my eyebrows. It'd have to be a really big T-shirt if I had my eyebrows on it. But anyway, Adam then goes on to ask another question, which is probably what I should have read at the first point. He says, halfway through doing some street photography shooting on a beach in the Isle of Wight, and Shanklin, by the way, is where he was. He says he highly recommends it.
Shanklin, yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, my X100V decided to reset the date and time. He then says, orders I never ran out of battery, though I did change battery at one point. If you have any idea on why this may have happened, I'd be interested. But my question is this. So this is a three-pronged question. Is there a way to bulk update the EXIF data on a couple of hundred photos so that when I edit the RAWs, it doesn't think the year was 2000? So that would save me a lot of inconvenience.
Taking the X100, was it a V, did he say?
Yeah.
A V? I have had a few anomalies happen, including of late, where I wasn't able to... I put exposure compensation on the rear dial, and it didn't matter which way I went, the exposure compensation just kept going up and up and up and up. I have done 2 factory resets now, but on both occasions, it's solved the problem instantly.
Yeah, that's because you've set something. You've got your exposure compensation dial set for something else. It will have changed something, definitely, because you can do that. Yeah, you can change the way that operates. So,
but it's only possible to put
the
one.
Thing is, you might have had it left next to your iPhone, and the iPhone is probably sucking all the goodness out of your X100V and destroying it.
I don't think that's the truth, Kev. I think
the real answer to Adam's question probably is that if the date did just change it probably would have happened when you switched batteries. And more than likely, that means that the CMOS battery inside the camera, which is a little tiny, it's like one of those watch batteries, has run out or has had a problem. Could have even maybe they've got moisture in it if you're on a beach or something. Yeah. So just keep an eye on that. Shouldn't have it will have if you leave your camera without a battery for a very long time. We're talking months. Then you'll notice that when you turn it on again, everything will have reset, and that's because the CMOS battery has to charge itself from a battery that's in the camera, standard battery.
Yeah, I'll be very surprised if he uses it even once a month. That should be fine, shouldn't it? No,
we're talking months, so that's why I said just keep an eye on that. If that happens regularly, then you might want to just send it in for a quick CMOS swap out.
Mind you, the X100F during lockdown, I didn't use it for about 5 months. I came back to it, bing, started up, no problems at all.
Yeah, it depends. It does depend. It depends on a lot of things. So things like the air, the temperature of the room it's in, all that kind of stuff will affect the CMOS battery. CMOS batteries typically last for a very long time.
Yeah.
And they will last forever if you do put your battery in it.
And that last,
so to answer the final part of the question, which is about the EXIF data, you can actually do it in Lightroom. I use Photomechanic. I shot a wedding last month, a couple of months ago, in fact. And I just one of the things I always do before a wedding is sync my camera's times, and I hadn't. I think it was the first one I'd done after lockdown. So I was like, there was like a 48-minute difference between my two cameras. So Photomechanic, just highlight the ones that you want, right-click, and not right-click, go to the Tools menu in Photomechanic and choose Adjust Date and Time. And I'm pretty sure you can do it in Lightroom, although I don't know the menu item right now, but I'm fairly sure you can do it in Lightroom. I'm not sure about Capture One. Probably you can do it in there. If you don't have any of those things, there is a tool called EXIF tool that you can download from the internet. But yes, so there is plenty of ways.
I wish I'd have known that about 2 weeks ago when I was sorting the Indian wedding that I shot with Nat was the second shooter on that, and our clocks were all different to each other. I thought, oh no! And I sort of painstakingly put everything in order. I did it, but it did take a while. Oh, Kev, I should have known about that. That would have solved that. Right, next bump to the front.
Next one is from Sam Meggs. He says, hi, Neil and Kev. Love the show, yada, yada, yada. My question is in regards of advertising in different markets. I'm based in Ontario, Canada, but I have dual citizenship in Canada and the United Kingdom. Lucky you. I'm trying to find a way to market myself in the UK for a few months to somewhat extend my wedding season as it gets pretty cold here. My question is, how would you go about it? Would you create a whole other social media website, etc.? I know when Google, it is largely based off your location.
Yes.
So I think that might be out. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, and the location thing's instantly going to be a problem there, isn't it?
Yeah, but you don't. Yes. So the Google stuff typically is location based these days.
You can't just get a .co.uk, can you? And expect for.
Well, to a certain extent, you can. I mean, yes. First of all, get a .co.uk domain name registered in it with a UK host. So if people then type wedding photographer, for example, it's more than likely Google going to deliver the local search results. But if somebody types in, Watley Manor wedding photographer, for example, Watley Manor being a venue, then it will start delivering results of photographers that have shot at Watley Manor, and not necessarily the ones that are local to Watley Manor, because it's clever enough to figure that stuff out.
Has that changed then, Kev? Because I thought one of the problems was that it was picking out photographers that lived close to a venue, not necessarily those that have any experience of a venue.
No, not really. No, they're clever. They understand these things. They understand that, if you're searching for a generic term, such as, I don't know, let's just say you're searching for pizza, if you type in pizza in your search engine now and I type it in mine, we'll get very different pizza restaurants.
Let's see who I get. Pizza.
Ignore the adverts. Just go straight to the first
one.
Actual result.
You do treat yourself to the best pizza, De Luca, which actually is not that local. And the local one is literally 3 minutes walk down the road, but it's given me one in Marlow Bottom.
So my one is the Birdcage, which I can smell them cooking their pizzas.
I can smell that one more than I can smell the one in Marlow's Bottom, if you pardon the expression.
Yeah, but your IP address is not necessarily where your house is.
Right.
Yeah, so.
But yours is.
And also, if you're not logged, so if you're logged into your Google account,
which
it will be more accurate.
I am. I'm logged in.
But your IP address might not be nailed onto your house.
Obviously, it thinks I live in posh Marlow.
But if you type in, I don't know, let's type in wedding pizza
van. There we go. Wedding pizza van. So the closest one I get is one in Hampton. The Doe and Deer mobile pizza van.
I've got Doe and Deer as well, yeah. So my point is, because that's not a generic term, it's delivering us the same results because we're both looking for something far more specific.
Yeah, very
and that's the same as like venues and stuff like that. It knows, they're clever enough to know that, if you're looking for a photographer at a specific wedding venue, you're not necessarily looking for somebody who lives near that wedding venue. You're looking for people who've worked at that wedding venue.
Well, that's most certainly changed, Kev, from a conversation we've had in the lifetime of this podcast, where one of the sets of Google changes most certainly wasn't finding all the lovely work in your blogs you'd done involving, say, on Watley Manor across the years. It was simply favouring the closest photographer to that venue. It was like a local Geddon for those who'd spent time optimising for a venue, because it would more likely go to the person living next door with 2 weddings experience and maybe a pizza business on the side. So it is tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it will be tricky, of course, social media and everything. You don't want to muddy the waters with your Canadian work. No. I mean, I would probably.
It's a bit chicken and egg this then, because he's got to come across and shoot some weddings that clearly look very English and in English venues, hasn't he, really? Otherwise, pictorially, when you go there, it doesn't matter what you've managed to make Google do. If you see lots of Canadian weddings, is that going to be an issue?
Potentially. I think if it was me, if I was in this situation, I think I would just rely on advertising.
Yeah.
Google AdWords, whatever, that kind of thing. Maybe have a... if you don't want to go into the cost of having a new website and all that kind of stuff, maybe have a section of your website that is specifically for your UK weddings. Your adverts are driven there. Explain the situation. You're only there for a couple of months. You're a professional photographer. See the rest of my work, etc., etc. and just use AdWords, because organic marketing for that is going to be very, very difficult without any footprint at all.
Good luck with that. Right, I think we had quite a few there. So go on, next one, Kev. I think the first half is going to be our bump to the front.
It is this week, yeah. Next one is Jeremiah Trulio. I randomly found your podcast in my search to find a Fujifilm community. And your passion for photography is inspiring and challenges me to go shoot daily. Yeah. Anyways, I am from San Diego, California, and I mostly photograph documentary style of family and everyday life. My question is, do you have any tips or words of wisdoms when developing your style? I've been photographing for 5 years and I feel like a lack of consistent look and feel to my photos. We answered this already, haven't we?
Well, we haven't answered this specific one, but we have talked about this subject. Yes, we have. And the style one is such a difficult one because it can come down to lots of different things. One thing that we did discuss was style can be associated with it could be associated with a look and feel as far as a focal length goes. We've had that conversation about shooting with, taking all the lenses out your bag and just using one or two at the most. A focal length can be a style, can't it? Mm-hmm. And post-processing, I think we were both a little bit nervous about suggesting that as a style because those sort of trends come and go, don't they? What's a crushed black today will be a sort of soft yellow tomorrow or whatever. So we were a little bit cautious about post-processing being a style. What else did we come across with there?
I think that was pretty much it. Yeah, it was last week, wasn't it? I think so. It's fairly similar. I mean, your style ultimately is something that, as long as you're comfortable with it, doesn't really matter.
And then we discussed Salgado, of course, who has lots of different styles depending upon what he shoots. Yeah, I mean, his landscape work, which is gorgeous, is not the same as the work he shoots when he's photographing indigenous peoples, for example, and the portrait work that he does is different. Right. Yeah. Next one.
Right. Steve Pereira. Hi, guys. Couple of things. Similar to Kevin, I returned back to martial arts training at a mature stage in life. He says over 50. No accurate date, just over 50.
Right.
And it was Shotokan karate. I found it pretty tough on my joints and muscles for quite a few months, but things seem to have settled down now quite nicely. Yeah. He's been back for 5 years. So there's a couple of questions in this. How did you, Kevin, find the physical aspects of returning to judo? And would you recommend it for others?
It's the judo cast.
I love this bit. There is a question at the end. He goes, by the way, in my dojo, those of us at the senior end are referred to as creaky corner. That's brilliant. I'm definitely introducing creaky corner to our dojo.
Brilliant.
And so before we answer the X100 thing, I mean, it's really funny because it's very apposite, which is that word. I don't know what it means, but you say it a lot.
You've used it twice in a row now, Kev.
Yeah. Gemma this morning when we were getting out of bed, she kind of... pulled the covers off. You've got to get up. It was time to get up. You've got to take Albie to school. Yeah. And then she went, bloody hell, look at those bruises. And I was properly dumped on Wednesday night by a 14-year-old boy. But it's great. I do love it. But you're right. I mean, the hardest thing for me is when we have to kneel down at the beginning and kneel down at the end. I'm like, that's the hardest thing, just the actual kneel in. The rest of it I can deal with. But so the question then is, secondly, I'm still carrying around my original X100, the Finepix X100, of course it was originally.
The original one was, wasn't it? Yeah.
It seems to slow me down when I'm taking photographs and put more thought into it. It's also the only camera that I talk to and usually swear at. Would you still recommend other people buying the original X100 as a daily carry around? All the best. Well done on the show, Steve.
Well, if you're not using it for anything professional, yes. I mean, I've really, as you know, fallen back in love with the Fujifilm X Pro 1. I bought a new lens for it the other day, a 12mm Samyang to go on the front. Fantastic, love it.
Why did you buy that? I've got one of them in my cupboard. You could have had that.
Oh, really? Well, I figured I've stolen so many of your lenses, I can't keep stealing them. I bought one now, Kev. Oh, you had that one? Never mind. Okay, we both
literally never use it. It was one that's in my potential MPB. Well, no, it will be in my MPB list when I get around to doing it.
Right. I bought this one from MPB, so I could have been buying yours. But X100 wise, oh god, that camera drove me mad. I did like it. I wouldn't say I ever loved it. You did love it because it changed the focus, literally, of your photographic career, didn't it? But
it was quite a frustrating camera.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I remember being in took it on holiday, and we won a competition to on EasyJet to go up to see the captain at the end of the flight. We guessed the miles between two destinations, and he said, "Did your little boy want to sit in the captain's seat and have a photograph?" I said, "You bet." And I had my X100. This thing would not focus because of the backlight, and in the end, I ended up using my iPhone. So it did have its moments, didn't it?
Well, yes, but that's because you had that camera near your iPhone, and your iPhone is sucking away all the goodness.
No, Kev, it was nothing to do with that at all. It was the fact that it was appalling in backlit conditions, and you know that as well. But
yeah, it wasn't
had
great.
Many other things that it was good at.
It wasn't quick to focus, and it was frustrating. But yeah, I mean, it certainly would slow you down, as Steve says. So if you're interested in a carry-around camera that's literally going to give you a look that none of the others do as well, then yeah, that's the camera.
Well, that certainly would do it. Yeah. Apposite, by the way, I've got it here. Apt in the circumstances or in relation to something. This is the way they say you should pronounce it.
Apposite.
No, that's opposite.
Apposite.
Oh, opposite what?
No, she is saying apposite, but I've always thought it was apposite.
Apposite.
Okay. Right. I'm going to keep saying apposite.
So basically, it's the same as apt,
but with more letters, so it makes you more important.
Right, Ludis says, as an amateur photographer, I've enjoyed listening to the two of you over the past 199 episodes.
Wow. Ooh.
But there is something I don't think you have really discussed.
Oh.
How is it that you maintain enjoyment of photography while doing it as your means of living? And then he goes on to explain, I know Kevin would love to be on the rugby pitch taking pictures, but he doesn't. Neil would love to be at the airport telling stories.
Yeah.
But he isn't.
No.
So essentially, he's saying, why is it that you're not doing the stuff that you think you would love to do? And
to use a lovely expression from Only Fools and Horses, it's all to do with the bunts. I bought 2 lottery tickets this morning, Kev. I'm bound to win one of them, surely. But with all the money in the world, I would be doing things slightly differently. I'd still be photographing, of course I would. But then I would have the time to say, I'd love to come to Heathrow for the next 2 weeks and work for absolutely nothing, just to try and sort of. But I'm not at that. I'm not, sadly, not at that stage.
But there's plenty of people who go to Heathrow and do photography, and it's not for nothing. There's plenty of sports photographers who get paid reasonably well.
But they've worked themselves. Yeah, they've worked themselves into that position. It took me 16 years to get in a position where I feel like I've got a strong, notwithstanding pandemic wedding business.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. And yeah, ultimately, somebody asked me the other night. Actually, we were out, and he said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a photographer." He said, "What do you photograph?" I said, "Anything that gives me money." And that's a good answer. That's the brutal truth of it. It doesn't mean that. The inference in the question is perhaps a little bit off in that, we photograph weddings, mostly weddings, and that doesn't mean we don't enjoy those. Of course we do, because, you certainly wouldn't be spending Saturdays at other people's weddings if you didn't enjoy that job. It's not the same as, if you're a pen pusher and you hate it, there's plenty of pen pushers like pushing pens, so, I'm not knocking them. But, if you're in an office all day pushing the pen around and you really hate it and you dream of doing something else, that's slightly different. We're still taking pictures. We're still doing the things we like.
Yeah.
We're just, there's always something that you want to do. And that's why you got the lottery tickets today, isn't it? Or gamble safely, everybody.
I'm sharing it with you, Kev, if I win, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll buy you a 35mm. It's going to be the first thing I do.
That's right. Well, you'll probably just win win a pound ticket for next week.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But going out and being able to photo... I'll tell you one thing, and it's partly because of the other podcast, of course, but I suppose in terms of enjoyment, I've made far more landscapey, I don't call myself a landscape photographer, but photographs in the landscape than I've ever done in my entire photographic existence. And I enjoy that. Does that count?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I guess the question was really, why are we not... why are you not your living is not of something that is your dream? And the answer simply is that most people it isn't true, is it? It's just not. And then when you are doing what your dream is, often that dream can turn into a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, what was that phrase? Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Exactly that.
In terms of my airport dreams, being the airport photographer, well, it's never far from my mind, Kevin. When I am at airports, which is not very often in these days of the C word, or at all come to that, but prior to the war, Rodney, I do find myself seeing exactly how I might make stories when I'm at an airport. I'm just trying to resolve how I might communicate that to a buyer or the airport itself. Would you like to photograph more rugby again, though?
Yeah, I mean, I've done plenty of that actually in the past.
Yeah, I know you have. Yeah.
And I did enjoy it, but it was not for any financial gain. I mean, I've got some projects coming up that I'm really, really interested in doing with some musicians and things that will basically be what do the models call it? TFT? Is it time for?
No, time for TFP is what it used to be called. Time for Prince. I don't know what it's called now.
Yeah, Time for Prince. So that's essentially the relationship I've got with this band.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing stuff for them, and hopefully they'll be taking me around the world on their bus.
Well, let's hope it's a Learjet rather than a bus. Right, guest, Peter Dench. Obviously, you're about to reveal a lot more about Peter through your interview, but give us a reason why you contacted him. I know you know him. What was it that drew you to Peter?
Oh, well, the reason why I got him on the show was because I bumped into him at the photography show, and when we were having a chat, and while I was talking to him, my mind just ticking. I was thinking, have we had Peter? We haven't. And then literally as he was walking away, I said, I'm going to ring you next week. I'm going to ring you. And of course, I didn't ring him. I sent him an email, because that's when you say you're going to ring somebody these days, that's what you do, don't you? You send them an email or you WhatsApp them. So that was it. So, but no, he's a really well. We've reviewed several of his books before.
Yeah.
He's a very well-respected photojournalist, and so it's a really interesting conversation, I feel.
And we've split this into two parts across the next two FujiCasts. So here's part one today of Kev's conversation with Peter Dench.
Well, I think our paths first crossed, when we both used to write an article for Professional Photography magazine many, many years ago. And mine was all boring and business, and yours was the very humorous Dench's Diaries, which was amazing. I used to love reading that. But tell us a little bit about your background, your photography background, and how did you become a photojournalist?
Oh, crikey! I guess I got my first camera when I was 14 years old. I was a keen cricketer before that, but I could never quite get over the nerves of opening the batting and failing in front of a crowd. I used to feel nauseous weeks before a game. So I kind of traded in all my cricket gear, and I thought, well, what can I do that will get me out and about? And I thought, well, photography seems like, an interesting way to see the world. So I picked up a camera around about the age of 14, and then sort of going through my teenage years, I was fired from every job I had until only photography remained. And then I thought I'd better, make a go of it professionally. If you can travel the world, make people laugh, make people think, and have a few drinks along the way, that didn't seem a bad way to live. So there's no plan B. This is it for me. I've got no other interests, no other professional skills. So it's been 3 years, according to the taxman.
Yeah, of course, the all-important tax man. And well, no, it is fun. It is. It's great that you have this kind of like humorous view on life, and that does come across in a lot of your work. And I think we've spoken on the podcast several times. We've done a lot of your reviews of your books. And I think, ultimately for people who don't know you, I think then if they look at your work and then they look at your stuff online or they see an interview or whatever, I think they will pick up on this fact that you enjoy what you do. And I think that's super important, enjoying it.
Yeah, but you only see what you put out there. This is like, you mentioned the column for Professional Photography magazine, I think it was. And the reason I kind of did that was to try and sort of talk about the bits between the highs. You only ever read about a photographer's success, the awards they've won, the exhibitions they have, and the books that are being published. And, I've had my fair share, but I also know that weeks can drift by of darkness and gloom and, lacking motivation. So, while I do enjoy how I behave as a photographer. It's not all. I don't jump out of bed, spring out of bed every morning full of the joys of photography. I have to graft at them and work hard to find those highs, and that's been consistent.
Yeah, of course, and it's good. It's nice to see people, showing both sides of the bread, if you like, and that's really important. I think it keeps people, other people in the industry down to earth, really, to a certain extent. So talking of awards, though, I was looking on your website and I came across that picture. And is it a car crash? The World Press Photo Award looks like some kind of car accident.
Yeah, that's one photo in a series. I think the World Press Photo Awards, crikey, when was that? 2003. So it was a series of 12 pictures, which placed third in the people in the stories category. I'm not sure. Sorry,
people in news.
It's people in the news stories category. Yeah. So it was the first time I'd entered. I joined an agency which was full of award winners. Tom Stoddard, Harry Borden, Zed Nelson. So it was all part of what the agency encouraged us to do. And so I entered for the first time and placed third. And I thought, well, that was easy. And then I haven't won since. And I always wondered whether it's better to win at the beginning, to elevate your career at a young age, or to win towards the end and have your life's work validated. But that picture was an important image. I don't know whether you'll be able to direct your listeners to it.
We will indeed, yeah, absolutely.
But humour, as you've touched on, is an important tool in my photography, but it's difficult to get right. I think if you can disarm the viewer, with a humorous picture or a sequence of humorous pictures, they kind of relax a bit and they're not sure what to expect next. And then if you put in a picture in the sequence of the car accident, I think the impact is tenfold. If I showed you 10 pictures like that, you'd kind of brace yourself for what's coming next and understand that it's a series of serious pictures. So, whether it's an exhibition, a book, or a magazine spread, ultimately I want the viewer, I want to make them laugh, I want to make them think, and if possible, effect change. So that particular picture was very important to me because I was shooting a reportage on, England's relationship with alcohol. And, I'd done lots of amusing pictures and gone to lots of events. And I showed them to my editor. And he said, well, you're a photojournalist, Peter, and this sounds rather grand. But he said, you've got to create an anthropological legacy and, have something to say. So, I started photographing in A&E wards, rehabilitation centres. And I did want to, highlight drink driving. So I got in touch with the Bristol Rapid Response Unit, who invited me out for a weekend with them on patrol. And, I went down, put myself up in a hotel, went out on the first night. It's just me and, the rapid response individual. And when a 999 call comes in, they go first. And if it's not life-threatening, you get to stand down and an ambulance will go instead. So on the first night, we didn't actually get to any incidents. So it's a bit tricky because, I didn't want to waste my time and my money, but I obviously didn't want anyone to get hurt either. But on the second night, we kind of arrived at this scene. The rapid response driver did his job. I stood back and then he kind of turned to me and said, I'm pretty confident this is a drink-related car accident or an alcohol-related accident. So I took 2 rolls of film on a medium format camera, so 22 frames probably exist of this scene. And the chap, the driver, unfortunately died about 3 hours after the accident. So you'll only see 2 pictures from this, and he's not identified in either of them, because it's my responsibility ultimately what to put out into the world. Why do I think this picture's important? Why do I think it should be seen? And people can always ask me that, and I'll have an explanation. For me, it was an important picture to be used within the context of alcohol in England, and I think the police still use it as an educational sort of image in presentations and things. But yeah, it's a difficult moment.
Yeah, well, it is very powerful, and rightly did come third in the press award. And I think you said a couple of things there that are touched on me. One was this idea of legacy, because we speak about this a lot on the podcast, Neil and I, and of course, your primary concern has to be to make a living, put food on the table, all of that kind of stuff. But then there is this idea of legacy, isn't there? And this idea of, when you're gone, there's this whole body of work that will be here for a lot longer. And it's really important. I think it's really important. And when you're shooting, when you're making your stories, does that come into your mind? Do you think that far ahead? Do you think this is an important piece?
Oh, good question. Probably not while I'm shooting, probably afterwards. I mean, those, Alcohol in England and a book called England Uncensored, they both took 10 years. Yeah. And now I'm 50 years old. If I do another 2 projects that take 10 years, I've only got 2 left. So in that sense, I'm kind of more aware that what I want to say, I want to package it up and get it out quicker. So at the moment I'm kind of in a run where instead of doing books, I'm putting out zines, because it's just a more affordable way for me to distribute work and for people to collect it. So, that's kind of where I am at the moment. But yeah, I guess, legacy sounds a bit egotistical, doesn't it? But, we do take pictures. The way I see it is, I have a view of England in particular, and I'm just contributing my eye to the National Archive on it. It's by no means the definitive, archive. I'm sure if I grew up in suburbia rather than a working class seaside town, I'd see a lot differently. So, I'm just kind of aware that, I think I've got something to say, and, I just want to make a small contribution to a wider archive. So, yeah, it's always there, I think, this idea of legacy, but not in a, I want to be remembered kind of way. But, ultimately, I guess, the reason I do books and things like that is because, they do matter. And it's just a nice way of closing off a photographic chapter. Yeah,
no, absolutely, totally. And that's quite a, non-egotistical answer as well, which is good, which is nice to hear. And so, I mean, what is your... It says on your website, photographer, presenter, writer, author, educator, and curator.
That does sound egotistical.
No. But the point I'm trying to make is, what's your day job? What happened? Like this afternoon, could you get a call from a newspaper, to go off and do a shoot of an incident in London, or maybe there's a new diamond ring being shown at the National Gallery. Is it that diverse? Do you? Or is it, do you have these long-term projects that are essentially what you work on all of the time?
I hope I don't get a call this afternoon. I've got a tennis match booked. No, I'm not Spot News. So I kind of define myself as, having a sideways glance, working between the lines, I guess. So I am a contributor to Getty Images. But what that generally means is, I'm not staff, so they won't call me up and get me to cover. I think the Chelsea Flower Show was this week, but I could go on my own esteem, my own motivation, and then make an edit that I think is complementary to the Getty staff photographers, and then upload those as a contributor. So the way I work is kind of a bit more sort of brewing. It's it's a bit softer, I guess. It takes time, so I kind of I won't get a call on the day that sends me out to photograph in the afternoon, but I will wake up and look at the news, each morning, see what's happening in in London or further afield, and then kind of have a look what's been produced already, see if I've got something else I can add, something different to say. And if I feel as though that's the case, then I might sort of take myself off to do that. But when I first started, I was a photographer. That was it. There was none of this writer, curator, presenter, but that's become necessary. I remember sort of about 10 years ago that, I'm mainly an editorial photographer. I supply pictures for magazines and newspapers, sort of in print and online. And I remember the writers were being asked to take photos because budgets were being squeezed. And I thought, that's not great. Surely it's better if a photographer can provide the words. So, I started adding that to the package I could deliver to editors. And then, now we have to do everything, don't we, Kevin? I can do a meme, a GIF, record sound, sketch, present, take photos, whatever is required. But I like that. I think that's what's kept me interested, in photography. And just to ramble on a bit, the writing is kind of really important to me. And when I sort of reached 40, I kind of realized that my competitors weren't going away, and they were actually doing good work. So I kind of thought, why don't I take an interest in what they're doing and try and learn from their practice? So, I produced a book, where I wrote about photographers I admired, and, I now contribute articles regularly to Amateur Photographer and a column to Professional Photo magazine called The World According to Dench.
World According to Dench.
Or Twat Dench for sure.
And Peter Dench returns next week for a second part in which he talks about the ethics on the street. And funnily enough, it's a conversation we've been having on my other podcast, Photography Daily, with a guest we've had on this podcast in the past. She's always amazing value to hear and talk with. So this week on Photography Daily, on Friday, Valerie Jardin is back to complete this series of conversations that started last week. For those who haven't heard Photography Daily, it's a Friday photo walk. On a Friday, oddly, where I take not so much your questions, but your thoughts about photography on a long walk. Just you, just me, our cameras, some quiet time together, hearing inspirational clips from a myriad of wonderful photographers. And then our special guest this week, as I said, Valerie Jardin. This week, the importance of making work on the street.
There are just too many disrespectful street photographers out there that are giving the genre a really bad rep. And it's a shame because it is so important. I mean, if we don't document everyday life in a beautiful way, and I'm not saying beautiful, it doesn't have to be all people kissing, but I mean in a respectful way, we won't have anything of this era left other than selfies of people, or we'll have surveillance footage.
And we do touch on the do's and don'ts of working on location with your camera, making pictures of the public at large, and what can cause eyebrows to raise.
It's happened recently, actually. I photographed this young girl with a kite. And I was walking on the beach. I stopped for a second, framed the shot, and I kept on going. And then all of a sudden, this woman runs after me and said, "Hey, did you take a picture of my daughter?" And I'm like, oh boy.
So that's Valerie Jardin on the Photography Daily Friday Photo Walk, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want extra mullins, well, you can do that too on the Incapable Staircase website. You can hear his weekly country music show. It goes out live Thursday afternoons, 3:30 p.m. UK time. Or in the best traditions of modern media these days, you can go to the website and play catch-up with old episodes, or shows, if you will. And of course, we'll have links to Extra Mullins on the show page today, which is available on FujiCast.co.uk. Right, back to your questions. It was quite a busy sort of Patreon start, wasn't it, really, today, Kev? Which is not a bad thing because there's always interesting questions within it. Yeah. So thank you. Mohammed Pirani has written from Markham, which is Ontario, Canada. Question for the two of you. How do you carry your cameras when shooting a wedding? So if you have two bodies with a, say, 23 on one, 56 on the other, do you use two shoulder straps and swing them around as you need them? Or do you use a messenger bag with one inside the bag while using the other? Maybe you guys use a spider holster and swap them around as you need to. Well, you've just described the way I work. I think you work the same way, actually, Kev. Spider holster, isn't it? One's on the spider, one's on the strap.
Yeah.
And it seems to work really well, really quickly.
Yeah, the little spider, not the one with the belt that goes around it, the one that you thread into your own belt. Yeah,
the one that looks like a big flappy ear on the side of your body. I don't use that, but you've actually looked up the correct description for what we both use. It's called a Spider Holster Black Widow Spider Camera Holster. In one. That's exactly it. £49.99 on Amazon. There we go. Get it delivered by Wednesday, 6th of October. That seems to be a bit of a delay. Are you Prime? It's got to come on a lorry, ain't it? There's no lorries. Oh, God, yeah. Even Prime now doesn't come on time, does it? No, got to get a lorry in. Have you got fuel in your car? Yeah, I did get fuel. Don't talk to me about fuel. I did manage to get it. I had to go to Swindon. No, I went to Cirencester. Sorry, I drove 200 miles to get my fuel, and then I got back and I was empty again. What's going on? It wasn't Cirencester either. It was Chippenham in the end. Chippenham, right. Okay. But no, because I had a commercial job in Louth in Lincolnshire on Tuesday. You did, didn't you? Yeah. And so, I did need the fuel. Yeah. I did need it. Simple as that. I would have been in a right mess if I had a wedding. Yeah. So I managed to get fuel on the Sunday, right in the middle of all of this stupidity, and then the job was cancelled because none of the other people that needed to be there could get in. Oh God! Right. So, but yeah, I'm being pretty frugal with the driving at the moment. We're recording this a few days ahead of it going out, by the way, just in case the news changes tumultuously in the next few days, which is always very likely to do. But for the last couple of days, Kev, I noticed the BBC have stopped doing scaremongery stories about it as the first main story. Of course, we've got the ghastly murder story topping our news in this country at the moment. Obviously, should be the first leading story. But I've noticed as I go down the list of stories, and they've dropped that off. And I wonder if somebody had a word with them and said, "Oi, could you just stop it? Wind your neck in." But I did notice this morning, Zoe Ball. We both like Zoe Ball on her breakfast show. The traffic guy started doing messages for the stations that had run out of petrol. I was thinking, no, we're gonna. Oh dear. We'll have another run. I think generally there probably is a fuel shortage as well, but they're not telling us. No, I don't think there's no. Not a fuel shortage, but a lack of drivers. There's a lack of drivers. Don't start saying there's a fuel shortage. Oh, anyway, listen, it's all bloody fault. It's not their fault either. No. Gas right, move on. Next question. No lorry drivers, no petrol. We'll be putting 50p's in the back of the telly again come Christmas, I tell you. Well, no, Boris is going to save Christmas. I saw that was like he did last year. I know. he was fantastic. Weren't you good at that last year, Boris? I don't think so. Oh, right. Next question. Let's move on. Do you want another one off email, since that was quite a quick question? Will Collin. Hi, Kev. Hi, Neil. Congratulations on reaching the big 200. I wanted to ask about something that's been niggling me. It's the way that editing software, specifically Capture One, so this might be tricky for us, treats film simulations from the image files taken on my Fujifilm cameras. I distinctly recall Kev, so it's all your fault, Kev, saying that when you import RAW files into editing as opposed to JPEGs, the film sims aren't actually encoded into the image data. There's just a flag on the image file to note which film sim was used, so the editing software can do its best to recreate the effect. So here's my question. If the film simulation options in Capture One are only the software's best attempt to recreate the real thing, why doesn't it offer me the full list of different simulations regardless of which camera I use? When I edit my XE3 images, Capture One doesn't offer me classic neg or Eterna bleach bypass, but I can get these when I edit my XT4 images. And in neither case can I get nostalgic negative, which I know is on GFX cameras. Surely if the film sims in Capture One are all software-based recreations, There should be no reason not to offer me every single option, regardless of which camera I used. Hope you can enlighten me, Will Collin.
Right. So, yes, I can enlighten Will. And it's quite a complicated answer, though.
Stand
so
by.
strap yourselves in.
Stand by.
So what happens with Lightroom? It's the same in Lightroom, by the way. Capture One. So they have profiles. They have profiles which are they're different. They're not just presets, if you like. Profiles are camera specific, profiling, color lookup tables, all that kind of stuff that are based on that particular film simulation. Now, profiles are specific to the cameras because each of the sensors will produce things in a slightly different way. So, for example, the nostalgic neg is not in the older cameras because those sensors just can't make that production, can't make it look like that. However, you can, if you, we talked about EXIF tool earlier, so you could download EXIF tool and you can change the EXIF data of your RAW file to say it was shot on a X-T4 or a X Pro 3 or whatever. And then you will see the film simulator, the profiles available for the film simulations on those specific cameras. It might not necessarily look exactly the same because those profiles are specifically built for RAW files that were made in a camera with that particular sensor. So that's really the reason for it. You can sidestep it, but obviously by sidestepping it, you're not necessarily going to get the greatest results. But yeah, there is a very good reason why Capture One and Lightroom both do it that way.
Hopefully that solved your problem, or at least enlightened you. Kev, do you want to take one off Facebook before we do the book of the week?
Yeah, I think we should. I haven't been to Facebook yet.
No.
So Facebook thread, remember, if you put your questions in the thread, we will get to it at some point.
Yeah. Don't you know there's a question shortage on? Quick, do a run on questions.
As my as my new tradition to myself is I always start with the latest question, which was by Jonathan Clapton. All right. And he says, happy 200th, and a question for Kev, really. Oh, there we go. Really love the recent 18mm f1.4 wedding photos you shared on f16.
Oh, yeah, they were great. They were really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I always worry, because I shot Jonathan's wedding. I always worry when but, I hope he was really happy with his pictures as well.
Did he never tell you?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Well, I assume he wouldn't write in. Like. He wouldn't write in now if he wasn't.
Well, Jonathan's now a fairly successful wedding photographer himself, so something went right.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought, well, I could do better than that.
Maybe.
So anyway, he goes on to say, despite the wider angle than your usual 23mm, you still seem to get in really close to key moments, particularly the hugs, and really fill the frame. I struggle with this even with 23mm at weddings. So how do you manage to get so close without impacting on the moment and or getting in people's faces and annoying them? So the answer to that is, I actually really noticed it with the 18mm that I was, needed to be a little bit closer, not too much, but a little bit closer, maybe a step or two perhaps, which obviously is a little bit more uncomfortable. So the great thing about the 18mm lens and all these new lenses that they're releasing, the new linear motor lenses, is they're resolving, these lenses will resolve against sensors that are bigger than the sensors that we have in our cameras right now, which actually doesn't technically mean that you've got a greater scope for cropping, but you should notice sharper images even when they're cropped. Okay, so there's a little bit more latitude there. So some of ththose images that I put on f16.click were cropped. So I wasn't actually as close as it may have appeared. Images in the rear view mirror are not necessarily as close as they appear. But the other thing that I always do, regardless which lens I'm using, is it is super important not to just buzz around, click, 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 click in their faces constantly, because that will annoy them. Yeah. So normally you'll see, especially the hugging stuff, you'll typically see me behind the bride, shooting over her shoulder. So the people who are giving the hugs, rather than the other way around, because you don't want 50 pictures of the bride giving a hug, because that's 50 pictures of her face in the back of the other people's heads. So I'm usually moving around the back. I'm usually buzzing around a little bit, changing locations, changing positions, moving, stepping back in, all of that stuff. But yes, you really must not I think anyway. If you're marketing yourself as somebody who's going to try and be a fly on the wall, you definitely don't want to be. You want to be a fly on the wall rather than a rhinoceros on the wall. So yeah, think about that. But yeah, it's basically speed of movement. Back button focusing helps because you focus once, take a couple of shots, move away. It's clearly obvious that you're there. You're as I always say to my clients, I'm not invisible. I'm usually the only single bloke with a camera around his neck at your wedding.
But it's also a particular time of the wedding as well. People are really focusing on the bride or the groom. They're not focusing on you. If you were to do that during the meal time, to act that way, you'd get an entirely different reaction, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course. You will know if you're overstepping the mark, and I think that manifests itself in several ways. If you're gung ho and you think, right, I can take 15,000 pictures today and, and just get what I want. You will get the pictures. You'll get amazing pictures, but you will, the memories of the people at that wedding will not be quite the same. So yeah, you just know it. You just feel it. You feel, you move with the rhythm of the wedding. Joel Meyerowitz says, you've got to be balletic with the scene that you're in. Be like a ballet dancer, and it's about that movement, about that rhythm, about getting the feeling. For example, I shot a wedding a couple of months back, and it was one of those ones where it was a wonderful wedding, really lovely. They all came out to the church, and then everybody stopped because it was so close still to the mask wearing, the COVID, all that kind of stuff. Nobody did any interactions whatsoever. They all basically stood 2 meters apart from each other, straight outside the church, and the bride and groom were at the other end of the churchyard. So there was no interaction whatsoever. And then you step back. You certainly don't want to be going, getting in people's faces, and regardless whether you're in front or back, whatever. You then think, okay, what's the story here? The story here is much wider. So you start taking those types of pictures. But yeah, you get a feel for it.
I'm just now imagining you in your ballet what's-its. I don't know. What do they call them? What are the
tutu? I'm in my tutu now.
No, the men wear these. What are they called? Ballet troxits or whatever. You're doing a fleur de what's-it against the bar. I'm just seeing you now.
Ballet troxits.
I don't know. What are they called? What are those tight trousers called? Would you turn up at a wedding? I could just imagine you, Kev, doing your ballet thing, waltzing in there. Joel Meyerowitz told me to do this.
No, I'm well and truly in creaky corner.
You would be, yeah. Right. Book of the week. What have we got then, Kev?
Okay, so book of the week is Lucy Hamidzadeh, Unfinished Stories. Lovely book, actually. Really beautiful, A4 size, very strong cardboarded. I'm reluctant to say it's a hardback book, although it is hard. It's not glossy hard. It's like hard cardboard.
Right.
And so I'll read out the blurb. Lucy Hamidzadeh, I'm just going to say Lucy, right? Lucy is a photographer and writer from Southeast London with a deep affection for unpredictable weather and the hustle and bustle of city life. Her early career was spent working for the Monarch Travel Group, where she spent 20 years honing her skill as a writer and developer and developing a penchant for travel and photography.
Gosh, she was in the right place for it, wasn't she? Wow.
And yeah, Unfinished Stories is an extensive collection of photographs that capture the daily lives of people on the streets, in trains, at cafes, going through their day,
Brilliant.
Often without much thought or notice, but captured in an indelible way by Lucy's eye and camera. Their unfinished stories are the inspiration for her first solo book of words and pictures, making a lasting glimpse at the fleeting moments she encounters on the streets of London. Yeah, and it's a really, I picked this up at the photography show, and it's a street photographer's dream, this book, if you're into street photography. And it's a little bit like, I like reading crime novels and watching crime TV shows and things like that are based in places that I know, so I can relate to them. And it's a little bit like the street photography is, I love it when it's all London based, because I know London very well.
Yeah.
So you're looking at these pictures and you're thinking, I know where that is. And as a street photographer, you then, not only is it inspirational, but it's giving you some really cool ideas. And she does some amazing kind of very clever work with reflections, shooting through windows, capturing people. Some amazing black and white work with like where the light is popping out of the scene, and the rest is spot metering we would probably be using for that kind of thing. And really the interesting element of this book is, or one of the interesting elements is because she is such a good writer also, there is a little description, there is a little kind of story, but it's not simply I was watching this scene and this unfold. There's a little kind of poetic musings going on. So, for example, I'm looking at one on page 120, and it is a black and white picture of a guy sat on church steps and a lady walking by. And the words underneath that are, "But now you are nothing but a piece of my past, a memory that is constantly fading. I know you loved books and milk and tea. You loved so many things, and I'm sure you even loved me."
So she's built narrative around the pictures that she's
I think
made.
it's wonderful.
Wow.
It's a really, really wonderful book. And, some of the images are actually, it's like a really close-up pictures of people doing the crosswords and things like that, and it's curated very well, this book. So you have a whole series, a sequence of hands, if you like, close-ups of people's hands. So there's this particular section is stolen moments, and there's first page is a close-up of a hand that's been heavily tattooed, and then you have really beautiful black and white of a little child with his hand on probably a bus window, but obviously during the rain. So you've got all the rain and everything. There's somebody else pointing at something probably on a London Underground notice board, pointing at the tube map perhaps, and then the reflection of that. And then there's a whole series of people writing as well, writing, people journaling in coffee shops and everything.
She does spend a lot of time on the London Underground, doesn't she? It
Yeah,
seems
of
to be
course.
a very good sort of, it's a rich hunting ground for her.
It's wonderful. I love this whole sequence of people writing and reading and everything.
Yeah.
I love it. I honestly, this is probably one of the books, the more recent, in kind of recent times that I've picked up. And I've thought that is actually such a good idea. Often I pick up photography books and I just think, wow, these are beautiful. And I love the stories and I love the memories and everything. But I'm not necessarily thinking that here. I'm thinking these are really, really, really cool ideas as well.
Yeah.
And done so well. Really, really, really cool book. Very well produced.
Can you pull out one of the narratives from one of those pages where she's pictured somebody writing then to see what that unfinished story would be?
Okay, so there's a man. He's jotting. So he's got a piece of paper in his hand, and I can't read what's on there, but it looks like the clues. It's the clues to a crossword, right? So it's the clues to a crossword, and he's writing he's trying to figure out an anagram. He's writing those letters down.
He's
underneath.
done them in a circle, hasn't he?
That's right. He's done them in the circle,
Is
and
that
the
the way you
words
work 'em out?
she's written are: "You were always too good for me. I'm way too practical and far too sober without you. You were like a lovely poison I still kept coming back to, but I'm far too functional, living a life of routine that makes far too much sense."
What an amazing idea, Kev. That's just
she's
inspirational.
incredibly talented.
Wow.
Yeah.
The pictures are fantastic.
Yeah.
But then to sit there and it's not cliche nonsense. It's beautiful prose. It's prose. That's what it is. It's prose.
Yeah, and also get this.
And it smells good.
Yeah, can you smell it?
I can. Right here. No, that's the pizza place in Marlow Bottom.
No, really, really cool book. Really wonderful book. So this is Lucy Hamidzadeh. I'm really sorry, Lucy. Hamidzadeh, is it?
Yeah.
Unfinished Stories.
Yeah.
Currently available. RRP on the back of the book is $30, so that's no good to us.
But you bought it at the...
I bought it at the photography show.
Photography show.
Yeah.
I thought, yes, that's what you said. Yeah. God, you must have spent a fortune, Kev, if you went to the bookstores.
I did. I bought 3 books, one of which I already had, which I'd forgotten about.
Right, okay.
Yes.
We should speak to Lucy on the show. It would be a great pleasure to have her on the show, wouldn't it? Really would.
Yeah.
Right, question. Have we got time for questions? Do you want to do one from Facebook, or shall I go for another one from the emails? We've got quite a few emails in, actually.
Go for an email then. Yeah.
Okay. This is from Margie Benson. Hi, Kev. Hi, Neil. I recently discovered the FujiCast. She also found my little Photography Daily one as well. I've become a big fan. The technical info and moving stories have helped fuel my desire to pick up a camera again. I plan to purchase my first serious digital camera soon, and after wading through a lot of videos and blogs created by a variety of people, be careful there, make sure that they say at the start, I bought this camera with my own money. Isn't that what you're supposed to look out for? Some who seem to be a bit more knowledgeable and professional, and some with a little less bias than others. I'm leaning toward the Fuji investment. Spending $2,000 or $3,000 is a big deal, though, and I'm really hoping to make a good decision. I'm wondering if you both might chat about why Fuji is the right fit for you. What do you love about it? What impresses you? I'd love to hear anything that you'd like to share. Thank you for your knowledge, humour and inspiration. Warmest from Margie in Utah in the States, of course. What Margie didn't write here was what she was going to be photographing, because, of course, that would make a big difference, wouldn't it? With what we would suggest or what she would choose. For example, I absolutely love now, it's become the camera that is always with me when I travel anywhere. It's the X100V. Absolutely adore it. And it's even got its own little bag now, Kev, with a divider, funnily enough, so that it doesn't clatter into the X Pro 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Bloody dividers. It's hard for us to.
I thought I got away with that one.
It's hard for. Sorry, I was looking at Lucy's website.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
It's hard for us to, because what works for one person may not work for the other. But basically, the best advice I can give on this kind of question is, rent one or go to a camera store.
Yes.
Most camera stores will they'll hold onto your passport or something like that. They'll let you go out with a camera, go out for an hour with a Sony, go out for an hour with a Fujifilm, go out for an hour with a Canon, Nikon, whatever you want. Yeah. And see which one works best, because that's ultimately the only way you're going to figure it out. Fujifilm in the UK do loan deals as well. I know that's obviously, she's not in the UK, so wherever, I'm not sure whether it's Canada or America. But
Utah in the States.
Oh, Utah. So Fujifilm USA, I'm not sure if they do the similar kind of thing, but camera dealers will. And I went to Utah once.
Did you?
Yeah.
I was waiting for something then. You were going to say, and we did X, but nothing,
no, I went on
nothing came.
I was on a Greyhound bus. I did like this. It was a 36-hour journey on a Greyhound bus.
So you passed through Utah, but you didn't actually get out.
We stopped in a service station
in Utah
because they had to eject a man off the bus who was
one of your mates.
He was, he was in a bad place. That guy. We were going from Las Vegas, so we started in Las Vegas, picked up this Greyhound.
God, how long is that journey, Kev? That's miles.
Oh, it was a long way. Yeah, it wasn't 36 hours, but it was a good 15-hour bus journey.
Yeah,
it was a great experience. Yeah. And I loved it. That's what I wanted to do. Greyhound, and we stopped in the middle of the night in Utah, and it was my first honeymoon. Right. So with my first wife, and we'd gone to the United States. We did 8 weeks in America. Yeah. And we got married in the December. So our first stop was Los Angeles, which is nice and warm in December. I mean, not like warm as it would be in August, but a lot warmer than it was in the UK. And then we kind of made our way around some ski resorts and stuff like that. And we ended up in Las Vegas. And then we were going to another ski resort. Oh, we're heading to Colorado. That's where we were going.
Nice.
To go skiing. So we got a bus. We got a bus from Las Vegas to Colorado, and which took us via Utah. And we stopped in this middle of the night in this service station. And I got off this bus, and it was bitterly cold, bitterly cold. We'd come from Las Vegas where we were wearing shorts to get off this bus. And it was one of those places that I was not a photographer in those days. And, I was probably in the middle of an argument with my then new wife. And it was one of those places that if I'd had a camera would have been the most amazing place to explore, because it was just full of like vagrants and, cars that had, driven for hundreds of thousands of miles and just needed somewhere to fill up and everything.
I've always wanted to go across America on one of those Greyhound buses, but the ones that have the windows that open, Kev. But I don't think they do now, do they? I mean, the old ones that you see in the movies with people like Morgan Freeman.
This wasn't one of those old 60s one, but it was a proper Greyhound. It was shaped, it was the proper grey shaped one that bent at the front and everything.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they do them anymore, but it was great. And I remember the thing I remember most about that bus journey was the driver. We were sat near the front, and he kept I could see he was getting tired, and so to beat his tiredness, he had a Walkman. It was a tape Walkman, one of the old Sony Walkmans. Yeah. And at one point, he spent about 20 minutes looking through his tape collection and changing the tapes.
While he was driving?
With one hand in the middle of the night, on these mountains in Colorado or wherever. I was like, oh my God.
Are we ever going to get to the other side? I'll tell you what, we should do a road trip like that, Kev.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, I won't come with the benefits that your first wife came with.
Yeah, well, hopefully you won't take my house off me either.
But I love your iPhone. Don't start again. Well, that's it for another week. Thank you to Peter Dench, our guest, and of course we'll link to Peter's work, and Lucy Hamazade's fantastic work. I mean, Kev, I've got to say, I mean, you review a lot of books, and I often look at them, and we join in and we pitter-patter about them. But as I was listening to you reading it, I was thinking, what a sensational idea. It was one of those ideas where you think, I wish I'd have thought of that, isn't it, really?
Yeah, but, yes. I mean, she titles herself as a photographer and writer, and that's very, very true.
Yeah, she most certainly is. If you'd like to get your questions in for next week, please do send them to the email addresses, which is click@fujicast.co.uk. Or, of course, how do they do it for Facebook, Kev?
Facebook, there's a thread pinned to the top, stick your questions in there, and of course you can be bumped to the front.
Yes,
on Patreon.
If you become a Patreon member. Music from Artlist, the extra music that we have, and we will see you back here next week. Kev, I'm hoping you're going to sort out your problems with that phone in the meantime. So, bye-bye.
Bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.